Well, for more on the latest escalation in cross-strait tensions, we're joined now by Professor Chong Ja Ian. He is an associate professor for the Department of Political Science at the National University of Singapore. Professor Chong, let's talk about the purpose of these so-called punishment drills. More than a slap on the wrist for a lack of concessions in William Lai's inauguration speech on the One China principle, perhaps?
So, they are intended to intimidate these exercises, but I'm not sure how much more William Lai could really try to accommodate. He's got 88.8% of the Taiwan public who thinks that they want to maintain the status quo, so he doesn't have much room to back off there. And Beijing obviously wants him to accept their One China principle, which sees Taiwan as part of a China that is ruled by the PRC. Clearly, the two positions, the Taiwan public position and the PRC position, are at odds. So I think William Lai did as much as he could to try to talk about stability. He tried to clarify the situation by also insisting on Taiwan's distinctiveness. But this is just where we're at. I think Beijing has been resolved to put pressure on Taiwan anyway, regardless of what William Lai says or does not say.
Professor Chong, let's get your take on what we're seeing by way of the scale of these drills this time around. We remember previously, China conducted a very large-scale drill when former U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan. How do these drills that are underway right now actually compare to what we saw the last time around? The scope seems to be a bit wider, even.
Oh, the scope is broadly similar. The other CNA, this is the Taiwan Central News Agency, has actually put out a pretty good chart. You can see that the scope is quite similar. In terms of the scale, actually, this is the announcement has been a 2-day drill. They could have, of course, extended the PLA. But, I think a 2-day drill that has, parts that surround Taiwan intend to send a message that, Taiwan, that the PRC can put pressure, can put a lot of pain on Taiwan should they choose to. Of course, this assumes a situation where there is no reaction at all, should there be escalation. So I suppose, it depends on how and whether the Taiwan public is cowed. That doesn't seem like the case right now. It doesn't seem like the case that William Lai is backing down either. So I guess, it will be a bit of a standoff, and then we'll have to see what follows after that.
Professor Chong, the concern tends to center around the possibility or potential for invasion, future invasion of Taiwan at some point. And so China shows its military abilities or its capabilities, both on land, in the sea as well, the naval capabilities and military capabilities. With that stepping up of what we're seeing around the island over the years and in this region, what is your take on the issue about that, the potential of such an invasion?
Right. So first off, I don't think an invasion is the most likely scenario. In fact, when you look at the way that the current exercises and the exercises after Pelosi visit happened, it's really a blockade. The aim is to squeeze Taiwan and to get them to capitulate at some point. Now, I think with the PRC too, they are wary about not escalating. Hence, this time around, it's a 2-day drill. I think the PRC and everyone else is aware that right now it's in no one's interest to escalate. Of course, to send strong messages. That's on the cards. The real risk is if there is some sort of unintended escalation, some accident, especially if they involve some loss of life. Then you can get a real ramping up of national sentiment on one side or the other. That will give leaders far less flexibility, and the sort of immediate responses that you see in the event of some sort of accident may actually get us to a much speedier escalation than leaders want. So I think that's something all the sort of capitals need to be cognizant of. And I suppose that's why Beijing is, limiting the drills to 2 days. I think they're trying to send a stronger political and diplomatic message, hence the calling in of the South Korean and Japanese diplomats, so on and so forth.
And while this message is being framed and these drills are ongoing, Professor Chong, Beijing, of course, still is hoping to stabilize ties with the United States. And that's despite all of the growing rivalry that's been mounting between these two countries over a range of issues. What kind of backlash, though, might we expect, maybe even regionally, over these drills, and even from the United States?
So I think what you'll see is a lot of messaging telling the PRC to back off from more risky behavior. But ultimately, I think the expectation is for the PRC to demonstrate its strength and then to back off. So it gets to blow off the steam that it needs to. But I think ultimately, one thing that remains unresolved and maybe unresolvable in the short term is the fact that the PRC actually wants to change the status quo. A status quo where Taiwan is functionally autonomous, doesn't declare formal independence. But if you look at what the PRC wants, and you look at the One China principle, it's to bring Taiwan under control. So as long as that those two positions are not going to converge at any time soon, there will be a degree of tension. I think the point is to get the different sides and understand where the sort of potential tripwires where things can get out of control might be, so they can maintain their different positions and try to convince one side or the other to shift. But ultimately, this kind of situation takes patience. It's just less clear that Beijing, under the current leadership, has that much patience.
Professor Chong, I want to thank you for your views this evening. Professor Chong Ja Ian there from the National University of Singapore.